So when did you decide that leadership was really right for you and that you wanted to take this mission and your individual purpose and become a highly contagious leader?
I think that I've always just done what's in front of me that's needed to be done. I think that I've been driven by my passion to be of service to however I possibly could, and my sense of responsibility both to my parents and what they did for me, and my sense of responsibility to the broader community.
I think that a key element of leadership is courage. We have to have the courage to make tough decisions. We have to have the courage to think about what the future will bring. And when you collapse all of that together, you never know what courageous act you're going to have to exhibit at any given time.
What is your passion, and how has that been demonstrated in the career choices that you've made so far in your life?
Well, my passion for the last 45 years has been service. And I believe that the greatest gift that we can all give back to each other is providing service to each other, to helping to create a better environment, create a better life, create a better opportunity for people to advance. And that has been, in many ways, in the various capacities that I've had an opportunity to serve in, really been my passion.
So as the visionary leader of Pinnacle Education, tell me about your courage, which happens every day that you walk this walk. What is a courageous moment that you can remember at this time?
The most courageous moment was the day that I submitted my letter of resignation in a traditional school district, because I had, wife and 3 kids at home, had a secure position from a coaching standpoint. We had won 3 state championships, had the top rated team in the state for years, and just said, not enough, I've got to leave.
I spent so much of my life living for other people, being whom they wanted me to be.
What I found for myself when I started learning about cars when I was in high school, and as I became a better mechanic throughout the years, was once I got over my fear of this big piece of metal and plastic, which is our cars, right? Once I got over that fear, suddenly there wasn't really anything that I couldn't do. So it wasn't that it was all that difficult, it was that I was afraid of it. And once I had that empowerment from that, I realized I could get on my roof and fix shingles, or I could change my leaky faucet, or I could change an electrical outlet. And there were all these things that maybe I didn't have the training to do, but I wasn't afraid of them anymore.
I liken it to basically jumping in the pool and having the confidence to know that you can get to the other side.
The very first thing we have to do is we have to change the way in which people saw themselves. People were invested in all of those ills and unders, and they were invested in the status quo, and we had to make them see, or not make them, but allow them to see a better future.
But what I'd really like to share is how you discovered what that wonderful, outrageous personality of yours is, and how it became your passion for what you're doing now.
Well, it's interesting. I think that personality came out when I was very young, primarily because I was an obese kid. I mean, I weighed 325 pounds when I graduated high school. So you either looked at that as something that was very debilitating, or you worked over it. And that's what I did. It was something, it was just whatever I did. So as I got older and I lost 100 pounds in the early 80s, and through all my business and all my work, I found out very quickly that doing the status quo, doing what everyone else does, was comfortable for everybody else but me.
If it feels right, you have to follow that, and it's just hard to explain that. But when you just have that, and that's what I walked away with from that room when I talked to this room full of executives, and they said, you ought to wrap it up. And I thought, you guys are crazy. You have no idea what the opportunity is out there.
I was thinking about being courageous, and I think learning to trust that inner voice and go in that direction, and sometimes if I'm not moving forward and I start to get worried about that, why aren't I? There's usually a pretty good reason. And learning to trust that is, I think, one of the hardest things of all.
The more someone says I can't have something or shouldn't do something, the more I want to and dig my heels in. So it was more, I had to prove to myself that I could. And so the harder it was, the harder I worked. And the failure was just never an option for me. I put on my blinders and I see my goal and that's it.
I likened it to jumping off a cliff with a bungee cord, which I've done and is highly scary. And you just hope that that bungee cord is going to grab you before you crash to the ground. And so we've taken
bounce back.
And bounce back.
So how did you know intuitively or somehow what guided you? How did you know?
I knew I could do more than what I was doing. That was probably the bottom line. At the time, you know, I owned a cap store. I owned a retail sports apparel store, caps and t-shirts and tchotchkes like that. Okay, so I go through this and I'm sitting there going, wow, I sold somebody a Yankees cap today. Woohoo, high moment. And then I said, I can do more than this.